Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you know I love to interview entrepreneurs, a company that fills the gaps in apps, and a whole lot more. That's just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home. We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network. We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show. I love to talk to entrepreneurs, and I love to experience their journey because it's always fascinating, the mistakes, the highs, the lows. To talk about entrepreneurship today, Anirban Dutta, he is the CEO and co-founder of CompuMatrice. Thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
Now, you started this humble beginnings. You started in 2011, and you've made the Inc. 5000 list several times now. Tell us more about the company and how it started.
Sure. So, before I started the company, I was actually working for large corporations. So I was working for IBM, and I was working for a company at the time called CSC, Computer Sciences Corporation. And my main job was doing large deals. So by large deals, what you mean is, they have somebody that kind of shepherds the deals that are over $50 million. And it's pretty much a mixture of sales and operations, and you're kind of shepherding a lot of different pieces, right? So I was on the road a lot, right? Like, I was gone for like months at a time. I'd be going to overseas, to Australia, to India, to Singapore, to Europe, all over the place. So I had a lot of downtime as well because I was away from the family. So in the process, what I did was, I kind of ran into an event with a publisher from John Wiley & Sons. And, we kind of pitched and talked about it. There's a lot of books on sales, but there was really at that time, and maybe even now, there's no book that's available, that's on doing large deals, this large tech deals, right? Like what goes in, how you solicit, things like that. So I ended up actually publishing a book called Winning Strategies, Secrets to Clinching Multi-million-dollar Deals with, John Wiley & Sons. So the book did pretty well. It got, it sold 10,000 copies, which is good for a book, in that genre. But what it did was it kind of gave me a launching pad to go and talk in different events, like the Forbes event, and in India, in, the IIM events, things like that. And I started meeting a lot of, CIOs, right? So who were not looking for large deals, but they were really struggling kind of with the large vendors or the staffing companies, and they were looking for something in between, right? Somebody comes, takes the ownership, but doesn't really hurt their pocketbook too much. So it's sort of, after kind of doing free consulting for a while, I realized that there was a niche for us to get into it, and that's sort of how we started the company.
So your team has grown tremendously. We've got some team photos I want to put up because I know you're very proud of not only the growth but the workplace culture. Talk to me about finding the right people for your company.
Sure. So we have a small presence here, but we have a larger presence in India. Like many other software companies. In India, it's retention can be very hard, right? Because people move a lot. And the market's good because all the large software providers like the IBMs and the Googles and Facebooks of the world are all there. What we do, what has worked out well for us so far has been that we get a lot of students that have the background in math or applied sciences, and we get them early, and then we put them through a very rigorous training program, right? So one of the benefits that they get is they work in life projects, kind of real life projects, and not just kind of like shadowing or not not doing much as they would do in some larger companies. So that's an enticement for a lot of people to come in. So the first 3-4 years is very critical for them, and we help them to provide them a good launching pad, right? So that's the way we kind of recruit. But we look for kind of the deep sciences background. Obviously for the tech work, and we have some other skills where we the marketing and sales and all that. So those we look for different kind of profiles. And then we have some people who have been with us from the very beginning, right? So these are kind of our team leads, and they're sort of the pillars of the company. We kind of let them run their own shops and provide them a little bit more freedom, what we hope that then they can get in some of the larger shops.
Outstanding. I know you're in a lot of different industries. One of the industries that I saw on your website that I want to call attention to is the restaurant industry, because they've been hard hit, but your company helps these restaurants automate, right? And I was, if we scroll down the page, I know you have some, just the ordering systems.
Sure.
Talk about the restaurant industry.
So we have several restaurant clients. So people, a lot of people do not realize, and Jeff, like you mentioned, right? Like some of our clients, their valuations are over $1 billion. I mean, they're traded in the largest markets, but when you look at when you look at their operating margin, it's very low. So what they look for is really somebody to come, take ownership, and basically run their systems. At the end of the day, the restaurants care for in our world, the restaurants care for two things. One is, is my site up? And number two, can the order processing happen, right? And there's multiple, things that happens within the order processing. So where we come in is, we are the integrators, right? So we kind of provide them a turnkey solution, and, that so that, these restaurants can, order, and, their customers can order, and, their operations can run on mobile and web pretty seamlessly.
Wow. And sometimes you have large companies that have an IT department, but just because you have an IT department doesn't mean that they can do what you guys do.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting thing. So our niche is, we have in the services space, we have kind of defined the niche pretty well. So restaurants is one space, and healthcare is kind of a little bit of a bigger space where we focus on, right? So where we like to play is very simple. So we have, if you look at the tech services space, there's this, the companies like an IBM or the big Indian SIs like the Infosys, the Wipros of the world, right? Like they come in and they want to do the large marquee projects, the projects that are at least like, $20 million, $25 million projects. So there's a lot of people involved, things like that, right? So that's good. And then there's also companies that are, that could be all size, but they're basically doing staffing, right? So, I need a Java developer, or I need a systems engineer, and they try to fulfill that role, right? What we found was the companies that are the mid-market companies, the companies, the clients that are between $200 to $50 million range, some even lower, maybe some a little bit higher, right? A lot of them, they do not want to deal with staffing solutions because they don't really have, the in-house skills or maybe the in-house budget to manage these resources, right?
Yes.
And they don't really have the need to run, a $20 million project. I mean, that's not their focus. So they are looking at running projects, maybe $200,000 projects, right? But what they're mainly looking at is ensuring what's called run and maintain, right? That their applications are running and they can do ongoing enhancement, right? Without really creating an RFP and things like that. So that's our niche, right? So we go in and we say, hey, Mr. Customer, I'm going to take over your app support, right? And then we also understand, and that's kind of our differentiator. We also understand that this app support that we are taking over, it's not going to be like this. There's going to be some ebb and flow, right? There's going to be some up, there's going to be some downs. Sometimes you may need some enhancement, right? So that's where we jump in and we kind of support them, and and they can basically estimate their capex in that way.
Outstanding. And you really are a serial entrepreneur, because just before we went on the air, you mentioned a pregnancy website. Absolutely. We're going to go ahead and put that up.
Sure.
Tell us about pregopower.com.
Yeah, so we have been, my personal focus a lot has been on this right now for the last few months. Right now we have several hospitals that are our clients. They're all beta clients right now, but we are officially going to do a full-fledged launch for this in 2021. PregoPower is a maternity tech platform. So what we mean by that is, think of this, right? Like, so you have, especially now with COVID, people are not going to see the doctors as much, things like that. You have a lot of pregnant women all over the world that may or may not receive the right care at the right point of time from their OBGYN for a variety of reasons. It could be insurance reasons, could be money reasons, could be distance, whatnot, right? What this does is it provides you, and we have a partnership with CDC, so we get a lot of content for them. We have doctors and staff, so we provide them ongoing, basically collateral, but they are not necessarily all generic collateral, right? So it's not like, okay, you're pregnant, so have folic acid. Yes, everybody knows, you can Google that, right? But for if you have gestational diabetes specifically, and you're 45 years old and you're a white female, and then you had some blood sugar problems, that's a very unique case we're looking at, right? So here we can profile the person and we can provide them some ongoing guidance on a day-to-day basis. We can track through wearables some of their basically like how they're doing. And the way we kind of go about it is we have two versions, so that's what we're planning on. Is one is a direct B2C where they get it free, they get the generic information.
Yes.
But what we really want to play is partner with this OBGYN providers, right? And so be kind of their back end support. So we are like the tacit support for them, where we are not being intrusive, but we're still monitoring. And if we see some flags going up, we can notify the front desk and say, hey, you know what, your patient, you might want to give a call, and we think that can be a very tremendous value add for this, for these patients.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. You really are an inspirational entrepreneur. We're going to put your website up to end the segment so everybody can get in touch. CompuMatrice.com is his website. Anirban Dutta, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Jeff. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you've been an amazing guest. We'll have to have you back soon. And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.